On a quiet evening in Afton, Missouri, a single gunshot broke the silence inside a small apartment. The scene that followed would set off a chain of events that investigators would later call both chilling and calculated. The victim, a 25-year-old woman with a complicated history, a growing sense of fear, and a secret she may have been preparing for. The suspect, someone she knew intimately, someone who didn't stay to answer questions. What happened in the final minutes leading up to that single fatal shot has left law enforcement, witnesses, and the public piecing together a timeline that moves fast, but leaves a lasting impact. Surveillance footage, digital messages, and one crucial eyewitness form the backbone of what would soon become a high-profile investigation. But the questions run deeper than the crime scene itself. Why didn't anyone intervene sooner? Were there signs before the violence? And what was said in the final exchange between the victim and the only person who saw her alive? As detectives sifted through physical evidence and testimony, one piece of overlooked behavior would ultimately tie everything together. The decisions made in the hours before and after the gun went off exposed a side of the suspect that had previously gone unnoticed. This isn't just a case about violence. It's a story about timing, silence, and missed chances. The victim's final move, caught in a matter of seconds, would raise more questions than answers. And when the truth began to emerge, it didn't come from who you might expect. If you enjoy real crime stories that uncover the truth, don't forget to subscribe. Your support helps us share real cases, spread awareness, and give a voice to those who can't speak for themselves. Before we begin, let us know in the comments, where are you watching from? And what are your thoughts as the story unfolds? Welcome to True Crime Uncovered, where we examine the cases that shake communities and expose what happens behind closed doors. Real stories, real people, real impact. Subscribe now and turn on notifications. You won't want to miss what's coming next. Kelsey Elem, legally identified under that name, was 25 years old at the time of her death. She resided in Afton, a suburban area in St. Louis County, Missouri. Prior to this, records show she had lived in parts of central Missouri, though she had only recently settled into her Afton apartment, believed to be a step toward building independence. She was a transgender woman who had begun transitioning several years before her death. Medical documentation and social media activity suggest she had started hormone therapy in her early 20s. She was open about her identity online, but lived a relatively private life offline. She did not appear to be publicly active in larger transgender advocacy groups. Kelsey was employed part-time at a small retail chain, working irregular hours, with co-workers describing her as punctual and quiet. She had no formal post-secondary education records. There is no indication that she held multiple jobs at once, though her work hours were inconsistent. Her known social circle included a small number of friends, most of whom she communicated with online. There was limited evidence of consistent contact with immediate family members. Messages retrieved from her phone indicate some level of isolation. While she had at least one close friend who checked in on her regularly, her day-to-day support system was minimal. There were no publicly documented legal issues involving Kelsey. A background check revealed no arrests, lawsuits, or restraining orders involving her as a complainant or defendant. She did not have any active court cases or fines. Her online presence consisted of several social media accounts. On Instagram and Facebook, she occasionally posted photos, but activity was sparse in the weeks leading up to her death. Private messages show a limited circle of contacts, with few red flags or threats noted. Although no public statements were made about her safety, private messages to one friend contained vague mentions of weird behavior from her partner. She never reported abuse to authorities or sought a protective order. There were no documented financial disputes or debt-related legal filings at the time of her death. Was there any attempt by Kelsey to distance herself from individuals in her final weeks? Why were early signs of isolation not detected or acted upon? Martino Lewis, age 26, was a primary suspect in the case. He had no verified employment at the time of the incident. According to records, he had worked in temporary construction and warehouse labor over the past 2 years, but had no stable work history. He did not possess a professional license, trade certification, or higher education credentials. Lewis had a documented criminal history. He was previously arrested twice, once for misdemeanor assault and once for unlawful possession of a firearm. Neither incident resulted in prison time, but both were known to law enforcement. No restraining orders had ever been filed against him. There were reports indicating exposure to drug use, though no active charges were tied to narcotics. An anonymous witness later stated that Lewis frequently carried a weapon and made threats during arguments. However, no formal complaints have been filed against him before Kelsey's case. He was raised in North St. Louis in a household that experienced instability, according to police interviews. Background checks reveal that both parents had prior run-ins with law enforcement. No juvenile court records were found, but his adult criminal file began at age 19. The relationship between Martino and Kelsey began roughly 8 months before the shooting. They met through social media, where communication quickly transitioned to in-person visits. Friends of the victim suggest the relationship was unstable. Some considered it on and off, though Kelsey never confirmed this to authorities or co-workers. There are no official reports from Kelsey accusing Martino of abuse. However, messages recovered post-mortem from her phone suggest controlling behavior. She referenced arguments and emotional stress. No prior partners had publicly accused Martino of violence, though informal reports surfaced during the investigation. Were there early warning signs about Martino's behavior that, when ignored, did the lack of public complaints make it easier for him to go undetected? Kelsey and Martino were last seen in public 2 days before the incident at a gas station near Afton. Surveillance footage shows them purchasing items together, without visible conflict. On the evening of the shooting, both enter her apartment around 6:42 p.m., captured by a hallway security camera. No one else was observed entering the apartment in the hours that followed. Neighbors did not report hearing an argument. One nearby tenant stated they heard a thud shortly after 8 p.m. but did not call authorities. There were no immediate reports of yelling or loud disruptions. Phone logs show that Kelsey made a missed call around 8:11 p.m. to an unnamed contact. No further attempts at communication were made from her device. One text message sent at 8:13 p.m. appeared to have been partially typed and not delivered. There were no social media updates or other digital activity between the time of entry and the time of death. No additional individuals were confirmed to be in or near the apartment. The weapon used was a handgun registered to neither Kelsey nor Martino. It was later found to have been reported stolen in a separate incident 2 years prior. The weapon was stored loosely in the apartment, possibly in a drawer or bag, and not secured. Did Kelsey attempt to de-escalate or protect herself during the confrontation? Was the weapon brought by Martino, or was it already in the apartment? The 911 call was placed at 8:32 p.m. by a witness who arrived moments after hearing the gunshot from hallway. Police arrived within minutes. Upon arrival, officers found Kelsey unresponsive near the bedroom. She was declared dead at the scene. There were no signs of forced entry. The apartment showed signs of a brief physical struggle, a knocked-over chair, scattered items, and an open drawer near the victim. Kelsey's body was found lying face up. She sustained a single gunshot wound to the chest. Forensic analysis indicated the shot was fired at close range. There were bruises on her arms consistent with a struggle. No defensive wounds were observed on her hands. The weapon was recovered at the scene. Fingerprint analysis showed partial prints belonging to Martino Lewis. The firearm had one discharged round, and the magazine was nearly full. There was no note or message left by the suspect. Police determined the suspect had fled the scene using Kelsey's car, which was later found abandoned on the outskirts of St. Louis. Martino was not present during police arrival and was listed as a person of interest within hours. A warrant for his arrest was issued the next day. Did the condition of the apartment suggest a spontaneous act or planned violence? Why did the suspect leave behind the weapon and other evidence? An individual was present in the apartment immediately after the gunshot. Identified as a mutual acquaintance of both Kelsey and Martino, this witness was not directly involved in the confrontation, but was in an adjacent room during the critical moments. Upon hearing a loud verbal exchange followed by a single gunshot, the witness reported entering the room to find Kelsey on the floor, visibly wounded. The witness stated that Kelsey attempted to reach for her own firearm moments before the shot, but was unsuccessful. According to the statement, Kelsey was still conscious and uttered a few final words. "He shot me." This phrase was noted in the official police report and corroborated by emergency dispatch records. The witness made the 911 call shortly after. No threats were reported toward the witness by the suspect before his departure. Law enforcement concluded that the witness was not in immediate danger, but the scene's volatility could have escalated had the suspect remained longer. Could this witness have intervened sooner? Was everything the witness claimed completely accurate? Was anything withheld during initial statements? Immediately after the gunshot, Martino Lewis fled the scene using Kelsey's vehicle, a silver sedan registered in her name. Surveillance footage from nearby businesses recorded the vehicle leaving the parking area at high speed. The time of departure was logged at approximately 8:14 p.m. From the moment the 911 call was placed to the time of Martino's arrest, approximately 14 hours passed. Law enforcement issued a BOLO, be on the lookout, alert, and used traffic camera data to trace the vehicle's path. The sedan was located the next morning, parked in an alleyway roughly 18 miles away from the original crime scene. The suspect was apprehended later, that same day at a relative's residence. He did not attempt to flee further and was not in possession of any weapons at the time of arrest. No resistance was reported during the arrest. Officers indicated he appeared mentally alert and physically unharmed. There was no immediate evidence suggesting assistance in his escape. However, call logs later reviewed during the investigation showed outgoing calls placed after the incident, leading to further inquiries. Did Martino intend to evade law enforcement indefinitely? Was someone expecting him or hiding him during those 14 hours? Authorities extracted data from both Kelsey and Martino's cell phones. The content included text arguments, voice memos, and location sharing records. Several messages suggested rising tension in the days before the shooting. There were no clear threats in writing, but verbal patterns indicated strain. Surveillance footage from the apartment complex and surrounding businesses confirmed the timeline of entry and departure. No additional individuals were seen entering the unit within the critical time frame. Kelsey's social media activity, particularly posts made in private group chats, showed vague concerns about her safety. She had referenced arguments with Martino, but did not identify him publicly. Gunshot residue, GSR, tests conducted on Martino returned positive results. Additionally, the firearm recovered at the scene was registered to Kelsey. Ballistics matched the bullet removed during the autopsy to this weapon. The autopsy concluded the cause of death as a single gunshot wound to the torso at close range. Time of death aligned with the reported 8:12 to 8:14 p.m. window. Toxicology revealed no substances that would have impaired Kelsey's ability to respond or defend herself. Were these messages signs of premeditation? Did any part of the suspect's digital trail contradict his account? The suspect was interrogated the day following his arrest. The session was recorded at the county sheriff's department and lasted approximately 5 hours. Martino initially denied shooting Kelsey, later claiming it was an accident during a heated argument. He did not request legal counsel until midway through the interview. No polygraph test was administered, as his legal team declined consent. Investigators noted several inconsistencies. Martino claimed Kelsey pulled the gun on him first, but forensic evidence showed the weapon was fired from a standing angle while Kelsey was likely already on the floor. His timeline also conflicted with surveillance footage. No concrete justification or motive was presented beyond vague claims of self-defense. However, the physical positioning and evidence at the scene did not support this version of events. Was Martino being truthful in any part of the story? Why did his account change multiple times? Martino Lewis was charged with second-degree murder, unlawful use of a weapon, and tampering with evidence. Bail was denied. During pretrial hearings, his defense team sought to reduce charges, citing lack of intent. The motion was denied. The trial began 8 months after the incident and was held at St. Louis County Circuit Court. Key testimonies included the eyewitness, forensic experts, and police investigators. The defense maintained an argument of accidental discharge and emotional distress. The prosecution presented a clear narrative using forensic evidence, GSR tests, digital messages, and surveillance. The jury deliberated for 5 hours before returning a verdict of guilty on all counts. Sentencing occurred 3 weeks later. Did the trial reveal the full truth? Were there any details the jury did not see? Martino Lewis was sentenced to 35 years in prison with no possibility of parole for the first 20 years. He was assigned to a medium security facility within Missouri. No formal appeals have been filed at the time of this report. Kelsey's family issued a statement through their legal representative, stating their intent to advocate for greater protections for transgender individuals in abusive relationships. The case generated limited national media coverage, but sparked local discussion regarding domestic violence protocols and the legal vulnerabilities of marginalized victims. Is this sentence appropriate for the nature of the crime? What legal reforms resulted from this case? This case aligns with documented patterns of domestic violence escalating in private settings, particularly when warning signs go unreported or unrecognized. It also highlights gaps in protection for transgender women in intimate partner relationships. No restraining order had been filed, and law enforcement had no prior documentation of conflict between the victim and suspect. Friends later stated there were private signs of fear, but no one escalated those concerns formally. The media coverage raised concerns about how transgender victims are represented and whether bias impacts the urgency of investigations and public interest. What systems failed to protect Kelsey Elem? Could intervention have saved her life? What responsibilities do bystanders, friends, and community systems carry in cases like this? If you found this story as gripping and heartbreaking as we did, don't forget to like this video and share it with others. And if you want to hear more true crime stories that uncover the mysteries behind these tragic events, make sure to subscribe to our channel and turn on the notification bell. You won't want to miss our latest stories, updates, and discussions. Thank you for joining us on this journey to seek justice and explore the truth. Together, we can make a difference. Until next time, stay safe and stay aware.